Well, all right, everybody, we have a couple of pole barn quotes to do. And before I go on site to anyone's property, even though they've requested a quote, I always like to call them and confirm that they are okay with me showing up at their property without them there and running all the numbers and getting the dimensions and things like that and getting boots on the ground confirmation as to what we have to do to perform a quote. So let's see if they're going to answer their phone. Not always do they answer.
Hello?
Is this Cinda?
Yeah.
Hi, Cinda. This is Matt Parr with Dirt Perfect. How are you today?
Well, I'm fine. How are you?
We're hanging in there like a hare in a biscuit. We're doing pretty good.
Okay.
I have found an opening in my schedule, and I am roughly 10 minutes from the property that you guys have asked Mike to provide you a quote on for your pole barn pad. And
Right.
I do all of his quotes. I was wondering if you were okay if I stopped by there here within the next probably 30 minutes, honestly, to get boots on the ground, review, get it all measured out, and confirm the work we need to do so I can put some numbers to it.
You may. I am not there. I'm in Evansville right now.
And that's perfectly fine. You really don't have to be there for me to do my review. But I do have a couple of questions. Mike didn't give me all that many details. I know the site. I actually used to know the previous owner there, probably two owners prior to you guys.
Oh, cool.
Small world. I was much younger whenever that went down. So I'm a local, but and we call everybody neighbors. So basically, we're neighbors.
Okay, cool.
I live straight up behind the church. When you guys drive past the church, and there's a tan house at the top of the hill. That's me.
Okay, so the Methodist Church.
I don't know if it's that type of church anymore.
It's the brand new church, like 4 years old or so.
Right in the curve. You got it.
Yeah.
You got it. Okay. So I live straight up behind that. So I'm not that far from your property. But Mike was saying that you guys wanted a pole barn pad. And what was the size of the pole barn? He did not give me that information.
Okay. It's like 36 by 40, something like that.
Okay.
I may be downsizing it, but cleaning it off is, yeah.
And typically how we do that to ensure that the builder of the pole barn has some wiggle room to kind of change the angle if you guys want it changed. I will typically quote a pad that is 10 foot larger all the way around. So I would quote a pad that's 46 by 50, which ensures you don't have, if there is any area that's a slope, you don't have a slope right up to the edge of your pole barn. You've got 5 feet of an area all the way around it. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine. You'll be running into trees and fences, but that's okay. That's okay.
I understand. And that was my next question, because I do remember the property. How far away from the cabin do we need to stay?
Okay. When you come in to the right of the cabin, up the hill, is where it looks like there might have been a slab at some point. Because what we're building is not actually it is a pole barn, but it's also like a garage.
I understand.
Basically, and there are some trees that he talked about that possibly would need to come out. And then the path going up there, and then the path going behind the house we were doing, and then all the roadway and.
Right, to connect the driveway that goes in front of the cabin to the garage / pole barn at the back of the cabin.
Right, so it'd be up on the hill.
Correct. And there were also 2 culverts in the current driveway that you wanted us to look at replacing.
Yes.
Okay. I'm taking notes as we're talking, so I'm not ignoring you. I'm just jotting down everything so that I've got it.
Okay.
And then he also said that I remember the above ground pool that was in front of the cabin. If you're looking at the cabin as you're coming in, the front would be the left, and it was on the far end of the cabin. You were wanting the dirt, if we did remove any dirt and didn't have a use for it, you wanted it to go where the in-ground pool used to be.
Right,
Okay.
because that's just kind of a hole.
Gotcha. And when you say fill that in, you just want it sloped and the ability to be able to plant
Right.
grass on it, correct?
Right.
Okay. Are you wanting us to quote seeding and strawing that area, or are you guys going to handle that?
No, I have a landscaping son-in-law.
Perfect, because we don't like to seed and straw.
Okay.
All right. Fill in where pool used to be. And then, are you wanting any new gravel put on the entirety of the driveway, or any gravel at all on the existing driveway?
Well, the way he was talking, he was going to shave it, excavate it, or whatever you call it, and then we were going to put gravel in all the way back to the barn area as well.
Okay, and that's just the connection to the pole barn.
We're talking pole barn right now. Okay.
Yeah. Now let's take that back a step and let's talk about current driveway to the cabin.
Okay.
We're going to look at replacing those two culverts, going back
right
kind of in the trees, and we may even have to widen it out some in that
Yes.
one curve, which I understand
Right.
all that. Do you want us, assuming the culverts need to be replaced, and assuming we do replace them, do you want us to also quote putting more rock down on the driveway to?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And do you have a specific want or whatever we recommend with rock size?
What, the Indiana 37 or whatever number, what everybody uses.
Yeah, typically what everybody uses around here is 53s.
Yeah, okay.
So that is not a problem.
Okay.
Add rock to drive. So just to kind of recap, I've got the 36 by 40 pole barn, which would end up being a 46 by 50 if I can fit it, pad. And that's going to go on the right hand side up on the hill from the cabin. We may need to remove some trees. And then we also need to rough in and rock the drive to the barn, potentially replace two culverts in the current driveway, fill in where the pool used to be if we have extra dirt, and add rock to the driveway. Does that sound like I'm capturing everything?
Yes.
Perfect.
And then there was more.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay. So in the field behind the house are like 4 big mounds of manure that
Okay.
has been grown up. I mean, there might even be boats in there. I have no idea what's in there. But he was going to smooth that out.
Okay. 4 piles of manure / maybe boats.
Yeah.
Smooth out as topsoil. Okay.
Right. Okay. And then I don't know if there were other things that, I mean, the land really needs, it's been over pastured. It's really bad.
Okay.
And so I don't know what you guys can do to help us make it. We're not going to put animals on it. Let's say that.
Okay. But you are going to want to maintain it and manicure it, if you will, and have it as a
Right.
mowed yard.
Right.
Well, why don't we table that one
Okay.
and say, while we're there and we're working and we're kind of smooshing things around, assuming you like our quote, if we see other things, it will be adders to this quote. And I say that because there's a lot of times we're on a job site and the homeowner's like, I want a building pad. Well, we get the building pad nearly done and they're like, hey, I also need this, and this.
Right.
And it is definitely lower cost to do that while the equipment is there instead of hauling it out and coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if you like our initial quote on these things that we have listed, while we're there, we're always open to the conversation of doing more.
Okay.
So I feel like that would be the better time for that conversation, because it may come down to things between now and when we can actually get there and get started. You may find some other things as well that you want to add.
Right. I'm sure we will after being out there.
And then also, once we're there, we may have some recommendations that may make things easier for you guys to maintain the property.
Right. Right. Because, going in, there are so many trees that are like down in the woods and stuff, and I don't know if that's something you guys do or not. So, yeah.
Depends.
When you're there today,
depends on where they're at. But yes, I will, as I drive in, I will take a look at that. And typically, Cinda, the way I like to look at these things is, if it were my drive and I was pulling my trailers and the things that I do in everyday life, how would I want it?
Okay, good.
You may not want the same thing, but I will make that recommendation and say, hey, if it were me, instead of putting one 20-foot pipe, I'd put a 30-foot pipe in there, widen this driveway out a little bit so you can make that curve easier if you do pull a trailer. It costs more to do that. However, if we do the 20-footer and then you want to do 30-foot later because it did make sense, well, now it costs even more because we're coming back. Does that make sense?
Right. Because my whole thing is, if we make this into a sunflower / hydrangea / pumpkin thing, we need a two-way driveway.
Yeah.
Right now it's a one car.
Yeah,
so.
and or someone directing traffic from both ends, right?
Right.
So I completely understand, and I will kind of pay attention to those things. Obviously, taking a one-lane drive to a two-lane drive is a little bit more tree clearing than most people understand, but I'm not saying that it's not possible. I will kind of look at that as I drive in and just confirm that I do believe it is possible, because I do know prior to the cabin, roughly 200 to 300 yards, there used to be another home on the right hand side, kind of up the hill in the woods. I think you can tell where the drive used to be. It's just before the curve to the left in the driveway.
All right.
So I know that there's room to expand to the right, and I'm pretty confident there's not much slope to expand to the left. But what a lot of people don't realize is, to expand a driveway, you need dirt. Well, now you've got to remove trees for 100 feet to get the amount of dirt you need to make the driveway 40 feet. Does all that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So it might turn into 2 stages. Let's do the pole barn and let's get the stuff done around the cabin, and then you guys get your funds built back up or whatever it is you need to do, and you say, hey, come back and let's do the driveway before winter because we're going to kick this other stuff off next spring, kind of thing. And we're open to those conversations as well.
Okay, because we're open to doing a lake as well, so.
And that is also something that we do also, but it's also, when it comes to lakes, I like to bring my laser and things out, and right now I have it on loan. And the reason for that is I like to take elevations and get a better understanding of the quantity of dirt to be moved. And then we also like to dig test holes to confirm that it's even possible.
Right. There may not be any water down there is what you're saying, right?
Not necessarily worried about water being down there, but the quality of dirt, is it capable of retaining water?
I see. Okay.
I hate to dig a hole and it just be a hole, right?
Right.
Now you have a nightmare to maintain. So we like to do our due diligence to try to confirm that it is capable and there is enough dirt on site in the areas needed to make it. So definitely a conversation we can have. Did you have a rough idea as to where you were thinking about it going, so I can just kind of put my eyes on it today?
No, because I don't have an eye for that land at all.
Okay.
I mean, I want it so, we'd be able to, from the house, be able to go to it.
Okay.
But,
well, maybe that's something we need to schedule for a later date in which we can be there together.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, Cinda, I greatly appreciate your time. I'm going to run out to your guys' property and lay my eyes on all this. And typically, once I get my boots on the ground and I get my review done, it takes me a week to 2 to get the quotes completely done.
Okay.
So just kind of expect. Do you want me to text it to you? Do you want me to email it to you? What's your preferred way of receiving the estimate?
I'd be able to print it better on an email if you could do that, and then text me that you emailed it, because sometimes
I understand.
If you get too many S's, it goes to somebody else.
Yeah, my email address is mattparr RPS. So there's 3 R's in a row, and you would not believe how many people forget the third R.
RPS. Okay, at where?
gmail.com. And I will give you words for those letters. M is in Mary, A is in Apple, T is in Texas, T is in Texas, P is in Paul, A is in Apple, R is in Roger, R is in Roger, R is in Roger, P is in Paul, S is in Sam at gmail.com.
So how many T's do you have on your name?
2.
Okay, so it's MATTPARRRPS.
You got it. And that stands for Resolving Problems with Solutions.
Hey, that's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Pretty cool.
Well, I will do my darndest to get this quote done in a week.
Okay.
That way you guys can make a decision or come back to me with any questions that you have.
Okay.
And if your guys' comfort level is increased by after I send you the number, meeting on site, me explaining it, we can do that as well.
Okay.
But also, I don't know if Mike stated anything. He and I both have YouTube channels.
Right.
Okay.
So you're the other guy with YouTube.
I'm
okay.
NYA Millennial. Yes.
NYA?
Millennial.
Okay.
Which stands for Not Your Average Millennial. So you guys can go and you'll be able to see multiple other quotes that I provide for people, and then obviously you can see the outcome of that work on Dirt Perfect, which is his channel. So
Yes, right.
you wouldn't believe how many people say, no, I don't need to talk to you. I see everything you do.
That's right. It's kind of fun.
And it's the truth, because Mike and I are not good enough to be actors. We just aren't. So what you see on our YouTube channels is what you're going to get in real life too.
Well, there you go. Well, we can help you make it interesting if you'd like.
That sounds great. Well, Cinda, I appreciate your time. I'm going to head over to your property and try to get this review taken care of.
Okay, thank you much.
Have a great day. Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. We have permission, and it looks like maybe there's a couple of other things that may come along the way in this. So let's go get our boots on the ground. So here we are at the property. You can see what she means by a one-lane driveway. It does look like we have a hillside here on the right, and we've got a little bit of extra room on the left-hand side here before it drops off too quick. Definitely going to need longer culvert pipes. That one there, get up here, I'm pretty sure, oh yeah, it's right to the end of it. There would be some tree removal, but I think there's some potential, and we can straighten out this curve by taking down these trees here on the corner and using that for some width. And it looks like the next curve might be a little bit more interesting, but let's see what we got up in here. Yeah, but that in there actually isn't too bad. So we could darn near make that driveway really nice and straight, and it appears as though the property line is right there. You guys can see the fence, and where there's no overgrowth, where there's been some type of livestock there. Maybe I'm wrong, but I used to remember the property line being that second fence there up towards the top of the hill. Maybe today it's a little different. So here is the cabin. Pretty sure they're not going to want to come up here to their sidewalk. We're going to have to put a driveway in over there, but let's hop out of the truck and get a true review. Well, all right, we are going to get you guys a view from the driveway. I did have a secondary conversation with the property owner about straightening this driveway out and that it being potential. So they want a second line item of a quote as to what this cost would be to straighten this out, extend the culverts that are in place, which is here, and then the one I showed you guys back there. But now let's talk about the pole barn pad. You can see where they come off of this driveway and they Y off and they go up this direction. They actually park vehicles behind their cabin, and the pole barn is actually going to be built back here on this right hand side. We do have some set points. They want the pole barn to be straight in line with this side of the cabin. We have a great big oak tree that's kind of in the way, that's got a swing there. They're fine with removing the tree, but the main set point we have is this power pole. We have a specific setback that we have to be from this power pole. So that's kind of going to put the corner of the pole barn over here. and then the pole barn would run to the right over into this wooded area, which is not a big deal. They're going to take their fence down. But we also have the option to get that setback away from that pole, pulling this pole barn forward. You guys saw the slope that we walked up there, so what we do have to be careful with, if we get the pole barn too far forward, this ends up being steeper than what would be preferred to minimize wash, to back trailers up here and things like that. We are going to have to take out some depth in this area, which would make it now need re-sloped on the backside. So to kind of bring all this together, we got that set point. That set point's going away. The drive will come up through here, go next and behind the cabin, because they still want to park vehicles there and do some other things with their porch. The back side of the pole barn will have to get deeper, along with everywhere that we're standing now. This area has to be re-sloped, probably beyond the fence, beyond the burn pile. We will also have to add a drain along the back side of the pole barn to mitigate any water that comes off of this hillside, kick it all the way over towards that ditch. Some of these trees have to come out anyway, so we'll create a nice opening that gets us all the way down to that ditch, which feeds the culvert down by the driveway. You guys remember from earlier in the video, she talked about some piles of dirt. We do have some extra dirt. I'm not 100% sure of its quality. We do know it grows vegetation. You guys can see the vegetation that is now dead because it's winter, but it did grow vegetation, so it does have some organic matter to it. It's not just field dirt. So if you look behind me here, we would be standing basically at the back of the pole barn. The pole barn would run towards the driveway, and it's going to have at least one big garage door, and they're not sure if they're going to center it or if they're going to put it off to the left-hand side. So worst case scenario, we have 2 trees to remove down here. I recommended that tree, which still has the leaves on it, that oak tree. I don't know what is going on with that tree in a positive thing, but you should see the astronomical amounts of acorns that are dropped on the ground below that tree. So I recommended not removing that tree. The forked tree may be taken simply because it leans towards the cabin. So to kind of pull that in, I see 4 trees on the back side and left side of the house total. 1, 2, 3, 4 that I would recommend removing. And then as we come around over here to the right hand side of the cabin, you guys, I don't know if this is a cedar tree, if it's some type of ornamental tree or what, but they are saying that it is dead. It is an evergreen tree, but as you can see, it's not evergreen. It's orange. It's kind of losing a lot of it's just in bad shape. Plus, it's really close to the cabin. So we're going to remove this tree as well, which will then, as long as we avoid the next set point, that LP is supplied into the house. I am not 100% certain where at this point. I don't see any gas lines coming in, so I'm assuming it's under that building and on the top side. But by getting rid of this tree, we're going to mitigate several things. Obviously, all this stuff in the gutters, which always causes a problem. Obviously, the tree is not alive. It could be because of that vine. I don't know, nor do I care, but it will allow us to reshape this entire area. And as you guys again heard earlier, there used to be an above ground pool right here, and this deck actually used to come over and kind of wrap around it a little bit. They're wanting dirt in here so that they can maintain this a little better. Right now it comes down, flattens off, and steps up again. So what we need to do is take that pitch and carry it all the way up in here to where we are standing now, all the way over to this hump, and just build up this entire area and just create one long continuous slope. That will be beneficial for their maintenance of their yard. It'll get rid of all these roots that are an absolute nightmare when it comes to maintaining a yard. And they had asked if access from this side of the cabin makes more sense and put the pole barn in this large opening here. It's not that the pole barn doesn't make sense here, but they're wanting to use this pole barn as a garage slash pole barn. So they do plan on keeping vehicles in it and using it as an access point to their home. So in my mind, what I see here is pull the building a little further forward, re-slope the backside, get the front of that building basically in line with this tree, but it's not going to be at the tree. It's going to be roughly 10 feet off of the cabin, which would allow that driveway to come up, veer to the right to get into any door access on the right hand side with just, again, removing 2 trees, but also continue over to the corner of this building, which should end up somewhere, well, basically right here where we're standing. And then that driveway can actually continue to where you can see they actually come up and park vehicles here today. To me, that ties all of this in, and it gives them much better accessibility to the rear entrance of their home, which they did state they use the most frequently. They prefer not to use the steps on the front of the home. All makes perfect sense. With that pole barn tying in basically right there, that'd be the front side of the building. They could put a man door on this side and do some type of patio over here, renovate their deck that they have here, get all of this in gravel. We can re-slope it all, tie it into that flat pad that we would put from that corner over past the fence, get rid of this hump, slope that in really nicely for the driveway. And to me that just makes perfect sense. We can go to the drawing board, to the laptop. We can draw all this out on Google Earth so you guys can have a better visual of how I see this tying together, opposed to me just pointing at trees and this, that, and the other. So that's how we're going to finish this video. But boots on the ground, great review. Everything's going to fit. Yes, they have to move their fence. They understand. They're okay with that. We've got extra dirt on the backside if we need it. We're going to create more dirt where the pole barn's going to go because it needs to actually come down in elevation on the backside. And basically, we've got 5 trees that I would remove for sure. So let's go back to the laptop, get this thing drawn up, and get some numbers put to it. All right, here we are at the laptop. Going to explain this to you guys a little bit better. What we're going to start with here is the driveway portion. Yes, it is a second line item on the quote, but you guys can see how this driveway comes in, and then it's got a couple of curves in it, one that's a rather large curve. And I feel like we can straight line this a little better. So if we were to come in here and draw us a line and basically come to probably right here, call that line new drive, and then add a line for the other side. This will help you guys really understand my thought process here, and this might not be exact. However, it is going to be pretty close. As you saw earlier in the video, this is that where I said on the left-hand side of the driveway, we've got enough room that we could push that driveway to the left, and right in here is where that first culvert was, and I said we can bring that driveway to the right. So that there would kind of be more of the new drive entrance. I think it would make it a little bit better. Yeah, it's not perfectly straight. You're going to come in and it's basically may end up just being this long radius that connects you to here. But that kind of gives you that better visual of how I think we can straighten out that driveway. And basically, you can see that big curve right here. If we straighten that curve out, that's going to take care of a lot of it. We got a small curve right here. Yellow lines kind of give you a what if scenario as to how that's going to go. And then as we continue up through here, this is where we were back there behind the cabin looking at the pole barn. So basically what that would turn into is coming in right here, running a drive up so far, and then kicking it back to the right. And then that is where the actual pole barn would fall in place. And we're going to draw every bit of it out. Actually, that's not a good line. We need to do this differently. We need to start on this side of the house so we can get our parallel line established. Again, this is that big tree that's leaning in the backyard. That's right here. We wanted the face of the building to kind of be right in line with that. Come back, get our offset from the power line pole. You can see the shadow there. Come over here. We're going to go through the fence into the woods a little bit. And that is going to be the actual pole barn. That gives you a much better understanding of the location of the pole barn. Now we can come in here, connect our drive, which again, you guys saw where those vehicles were driving up through here. This is that, what I'm calling the super oak tree. Man, that thing was dropping some acorns. And then this is that little tree that I said had to be removed, and then this is that other little tree that I said had to be removed. You can kind of see the tire tracks coming up through here. So if we were to connect this driveway, we're going to do multiple points to get this established properly. But this is just kind of a what if scenario. New access drive. And then if we come over here to the left hand side, this is where it would turn into a Y. You guys remember me saying we're going to Y off with that driveway. We would kick it in right here, straighten it out a little bit, and then come straight over behind the porch. Again, whoops, oh my goodness, going crazy with the mouse. Get zoomed back in here. This is that big tree that I was saying they could do a patio off this side of the actual pole barn and get that tree out of there. So that drive would come over, come past the pole barn, and then connect back into that pole barn. Yeah, that line's at a little bit of an angle, but that's okay. We'll name this the exact same thing. New access drive / home entrance. You guys can see there, that's going to allow for multiple things. This corner may not be a square corner. This might just come straight on through. But this is going to allow for multiple things here. It's going to allow for great access to the pole barn, great access to the back of the house. They can still park a vehicle in here if they want, or we can bring dirt in and fill this in so that's maintainable yard. And then this side over here is where that previous pool was, and you guys can kind of see that area. Basically what we have to do is fill in a triangle of dirt. We're going to call this fill / prep for seed and straw. This was that lower area. You guys kind of seen that it was bowled out. It's kind of, this is that tree we've got to remove off the backside. So this area here is definitely, it has to come up, and that's going to be a mixture of fill dirt and topsoil, more so fill dirt than topsoil. And that is actually an area that I need to get a dimension on. 70, 130, 180. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I know why that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because I just continued measuring. Come on. So that's 70 feet. That's 60 feet. And, oh, come on. That's basically another 60 feet. So I'm going to jot down in my notes here that we have a 60 by 60 by 60 triangle. We won't worry about that. 70 feet over there. If I can get my pen to work. There we go. And that'll allow me to figure out how much dirt we need to bring from back in here. This is actually where those dirt piles were that they're wanting to move. And that's going to be pretty easy to transfer down here. But basically, to run the numbers on this specific type of work, we've got multiple things. We've got to calculate what's it going to cost through the pole barn pad, because that's realistically the #1 priority with its access. They do want us to also quote the gravel for that access, and the gravel to come over here to the actual back porch of the house. They want this dirt to be filled in. So that's quote, the main priority of this quote, should I say, is this area here. The second line item is the driveway that we talked about earlier. And the reason that it's a second line item is they're not sure if they really need it now, but they want to know a general idea of what it's going to cost, so it will allow them to pull the trigger. So for the driveway, we've got tree removal, we've got dirt to move in, and we've got gravel to reestablish. And then we've got 2 culvert pipes. I did look at those culvert pipes. They are not double wall. They're actually single wall. And if you're going to be driving over, or you're going to have multiple cars in and out of this access, we always recommend a double wall pipe. They're a little bit more expensive, but they last a heck of a lot longer. And it ensures that you've got all these trees up here and leaves and everything. So any leaves that may come down into it, it has less likelihood of clogging it up, because a double wall is corrugated, it's got the humps in it, or sorry, a single wall is corrugated, it's got the humps in it, but a double wall is actually smooth. It's still corrugated on the outside, but on the inside it's perfectly smooth. So any debris that gets down in there, it typically goes through that pipe much, much better and reduces the amount of clogs that you have. And there's just no way for us to ensure that all the leaves that come off of these trees every single year is not going to clog that pipe up. So the best way for us to mitigate that is to put in a double wall pipe. So we'll back up and talk about that again. Tree removal, moving dirt, gravel, and pipes. That's what reconstructing the driveway would entail. As we come over here, we've got basically similar things, but I don't believe there's going to be a need for a culvert. We will need to put in drainage on the back side. I will draw that out for you guys. You remember back here, this was a hillside, and we're going to slope it past the fence up into this area. So water is going to drain down towards this pole barn pad. So what we're going to have to do, yes, the electricity comes down this pole and goes over to this side of the house. So we're going to have to start our pipe shallow over top of that. That electric line should be 42 inches in the ground. And then we'll run our pipe past the back corner of the building, and then we'll kick it over here and daylight it out so that it can run into this ditch, which then goes to this culvert and takes all that water underneath the actual driveway. So we are going to call this a perf drain building water mitigation. Hey, look, I spelled that right the first time. Go me. So that kind of gives you guys the full scope. So what this portion of the quote, which is the priority, would entail, we'd start with the pole barn pad, we'd shape the backside, we'd remove the dirt that's needed to be removed, we'd pack what is left to ensure that it's all packed nicely, we would reshape the side yard, remove the trees, get those taken out of sight, bring gravel into this area again after it's reshaped and cut in, because you want to get the topsoil off of that. You never want to put your gravel on topsoil. Bring in some base rock, and then bring in some cap rock, and we may actually advise the customer that the actual finish rock for here needs to be placed after the building is built, so all the heavy vehicles that are coming in with building materials is on the base rock, and then we can grade it off quickly and throw the cap rock back on. The dirt piles that are back in here, we've got to transfer those, maybe utilize them for contouring this right hand side of the pole barn pad and the back side of the pole barn pad, along with filling in this area over here on the left. Once all that is done, we will power rake everything except for the driveway and get everything ready for seed and straw. As you guys heard in the beginning of the video, the homeowner has a landscaping family member that's going to take care of all that, so we will not add that into our quote. But to kind of get you guys the best understanding that I can give you in regards to the equipment that this is going to take, we're going to need an excavator to remove the trees. We're going to need a skid steer style piece of equipment to pack the dirt. We're going to need the skid steer to be able to move any of the limbs and things like that that the excavator leaves behind out of there. So we've got the excavator, a skid steer, and realistically, for the type of contouring that we have to do back here, we're also going to need the D4. The D4 will allow us to contour all this all the way around. And then we're going to need the C8500 dump truck to bring rock in. And the biggest question here is, with as far as removing this dirt, do we need Bubba Dump? Realistically, this spot up here is probably 5 to maybe 6 Bubba Dump loads. And you got to ask yourself, having the C8500 coming in with gravel, do we just use the C8500? Well, realistically, what it comes down to at that point is, what are the conditions while we're there working? So I'll put Bubba Dump on the quote to transfer the dirt and the C8500 to transfer the gravel. If we're really talking about cost there's not that much difference in the cost of those two when it comes to moving the dirt, but obviously we can't use Bubba Dump to bring in the gravel that's needed for the new established driveway. Hopefully all that makes sense to you guys. I know the boots on the ground helps a lot. And then for me, back when I was trying to learn all this stuff, seeing a Google Earth image such as this really allowed me to tie it all together. But without having boots on the ground, it's really hard to tie everything together. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. And if you have any other thing that you'd like to see on these quote videos, obviously I'm never going to put pricing there. That's not just to protect ourselves, that's to protect everybody else. I don't mind giving rough numbers on jobs, but you guys have to understand our core competency is this type of work. Our competition's core competency is this type of work. And for me to share our pricing, that only hinders things for the customer and the competition. It's not helpful to anybody. Giving rough estimates in the comments, I don't mind telling people, for example, the pond quote that I did, the pond dam renovation that I did, I told everybody, let's just say 30,000. And then if we add this, it's going to be 50,000. Things like that I don't mind to talk about, but specific pricing, that's something that I'll never share. I don't have very many people at all asking for that, so it's greatly appreciated. But if there is anything else that would help you guys understand this industry, put it in the comments. Tell me what you would like to see that's a little bit different. And the other thing is, we're really trying to get to 20,000 subscribers. We're sitting at 14, and we're really trying to grow that subscriber count. So if you want to get notifications and see more videos such as this, I'd really love it if you'd subscribe, and we greatly appreciate it. And as always, like, comment, subscribe.